Mr. Speaker, and still I rise to note that tonight I have called for the impeachment of Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America. He is an abuser of presidential power. He has called for the execution of members of the House of Representatives, of this very House. He has demeaned members of the judiciary. He has conducted himself in office such that persons are now threatening members of the judiciary, threatening members of the House of Representatives, threatening members of the Senate. Donald John Trump, by his conduct, merits impeachment, trial, and conviction in the Senate of the United States of America, and should never hold any office of public trust ever again.
Hi, team. Adam is ready. The phone calls happening behind closed doors in the White House right now are reportedly filled with profanity and rage. The president is watching something unfold that he cannot stop with a tweet, cannot intimidate with a threat, and cannot dismiss as fake news.
President Donald J. Trump has been committing crimes since day one. Bribery, corruption, taking power from Congress, creating an unlawful office in DOJ, violating First Amendment rights, ignoring due process, and finally refusing to abide by a unanimous Supreme Court ruling.
Because what is rushing toward the House floor right now is not another media story. It is not another poll. It is a stack of formal impeachment articles filed by sitting members of Congress carrying 7 distinct constitutional charges, and they are landing with a force that even Trump's fiercest allies are struggling to deflect. This is not the symbolic gesture from a lone fringe member that you might expect. This is multiple impeachment efforts, multiple sets of articles, multiple votes, and a permanent legislative record being built in real time.
This is Congressman Shridar Thanedar. Donald Trump has already done real damage to our democracy, but defying a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump. The court said the wrongfully deported Kilmer Garcia must be allowed to return and receive due process. Trump ignored it. He ignored the Constitution. He ignored the very checks and balances that keep our democracy intact. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a dangerous, deliberate pattern. That's why today I introduced a resolution to impeach Donald J. Trump, outlining 7 articles of impeachment.
Representative Shridar dropped a 7-article impeachment hammer just months into Trump's second term. Representative Al Green, the relentless Texan, filed his 5th Trump impeachment resolution late last year, swearing the fight continues no matter how many times Republicans bury it in committee.
I will bring those articles of impeachment to the attention of the Congress of the United States of America before the Christmas break. The movement continues. This is not a moment in time. This is a movement for all time. And those who have the courage to stand for liberty and justice for all, you are a part of this movement. You may not know it, but you are. Those who believe that government of the people, by the people, for the people is a necessity in a democracy, you are a part of this movement. So let us not forget that if we are to maintain what has been given to us, we inherited this democracy.
And now, with the Greenland text messages exploding and the Iran war casualties mounting, at least one senator is publicly demanding a fresh impeachment push tied directly to those crises. This thing is not slowing down. It is accelerating. And the pile of formal charges sitting in the congressional record, gathering dust but also gathering weight, waiting for a House majority with the courage to act on them, is the most undercovered political accountability story in the country. You will not believe how fast this is moving. Let me walk you through exactly what these 7 articles actually allege, because the substance here matters far more than the headlines suggest. This is not vague political opposition wrapped in constitutional language. These are specific documented charges drafted by a lawyer who happens to also be a sitting member of Congress, entered into the permanent records of the United States House of Representatives.
Article 1. Obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. From denying due process to unlawful deportations, Trump defied court orders. Article 2. Taking away Congress's power of the purse. Trump dismantled agencies and froze funds without permission from Congress. Article 3. Abuse of trade powers and international aggression. He imposed damaging tariffs and threatened military invasions of our allies. Article 4. Violation of First Amendment rights. He has retaliated against journalists, attorneys, and critics for exercising their right to free speech. Article 5. Creation of an unlawful office establishing the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and giving Elon Musk unconstitutional power over our government and personal data. Article 6. Bribery and corruption. He has dismissed criminal cases and solicited payments from foreign governments and coerced legal settlements for personal and political gain. Article 7. Tyrannical overreach. Finally, and most importantly, he is attempting to consolidate unchecked power and erode the constitutional limits of the presidency.
7 separate constitutional accusations, filed formally by a member of Congress 3 months into a presidential term. That is not nothing. That is a formal constitutional indictment entered into the official record of the legislative branch. And it is the foundation upon which a future House majority could build a successful impeachment process if the political math changes. The factual backbone that supports these charges is not generic political rhetoric. It is specific documented conduct we have covered extensively. The unlawful deportations, including the high-profile Garcia case, the defiance of court orders that judges have publicly rebuked, the emergency tariff schemes that the Supreme Court subsequently struck down as unconstitutional, the retaliation against journalists and lawyers that legal scholars have condemned as clear First Amendment violations. All of that documented conduct is now the evidentiary foundation of formal impeachment articles sitting in the congressional record. This is not hypothetical. This is a formal legal case being built piece by piece in the most official venue the legislative branch provides. Let me go through the 7 Thanedar articles one by one so you understand the weight of each charge. Obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power covers the broad pattern of the administration using executive authority for political vengeance rather than legitimate governance. We have covered the Boasberg ruling, which found DOJ subpoenas issued with zero law enforcement basis and clear political motivation. We have covered the Murphy ruling, which found DOJ attorneys made false representations to courts in deportation cases. We have covered the administration's open war on Judge Boasberg and Chief Justice Roberts' public rebuke, calling it unacceptable. All of that is the documented factual foundation for an obstruction and abuse charge. Usurpation of Congress's spending power is grounded in the administration's approach to money. The Constitution gives Congress control of the purse. But this administration has used executive power to impound funds Congress appropriated, to redirect money to purposes Congress never authorized, to withhold foreign aid Congress mandated. When the executive treats congressional spending decisions as optional suggestions rather than binding law, it is usurping the power the Constitution assigns exclusively to the legislative branch. Abuse of trade powers and international aggression was filed before the Supreme Court struck down the IEEPA tariffs, but the court's subsequent ruling that Trump exceeded his legal authority retroactively validates the core of this impeachment article. The highest court in the land agreed that Trump abused his trade powers. That judicial finding, coming after the impeachment article was filed, is now part of the documented evidentiary foundation for this specific charge. Violation of First Amendment rights covers the administration's documented pattern of retaliation against journalists, lawyers, law firms, and anyone else who dares to criticize. The revocation of security clearances from administration critics, the threats against media organizations, the executive orders targeting specific law firms that represented clients the administration considers adversaries. All of that is alleged as unconstitutional viewpoint-based discrimination in violation of the First Amendment's protection of free speech and press freedom. Creation of an unlawful office connects to the broader pattern of the administration installing officials outside the constitutional framework. The brand ruling we covered on unlawfully installed prosecutors is directly relevant. The Constitution's Appointments Clause requires Senate confirmation for principal officers. When the administration creates de facto offices or installs people without following that constitutional requirement, it is creating unlawful offices in exactly the sense this article charges. Bribery and corruption connects the financial conflict disclosures we covered in the banking investigations to the administration's deregulatory decisions in the financial sector. The argument is straightforward. Making millions of dollars in investments in financial institutions while simultaneously deregulating those institutions constitutes at minimum the appearance of corruption and at maximum actual bribery under the constitutional standard. Tyrannical overreach, the 7th article, is the comprehensive catch-all. It argues that the cumulative pattern of all the above conduct taken together constitutes a level of abuse that reaches the threshold the founders described as tyranny when they designed the impeachment clause. It is the hardest article to defend against because it does not require proving any single specific legal violation. It requires demonstrating a pattern of systematic disregard for constitutional limits on executive power. And the documented record we have been building across this entire series is the most comprehensive publicly available evidence for exactly that pattern. Now let me explain why Democrats keep filing impeachment articles even when they know Republicans will kill them every time, because the strategic logic here is deeper than most people realize. First, every impeachment filing forces a floor response. Republicans have to vote on whether to table it, refer it to committee, or let it proceed. Every one of those procedural votes is a recorded vote. Every recorded vote is a data point. And the cumulative record of Republicans voting again and again to protect Trump from formal accountability charges is exactly the kind of material that turns into campaign advertising in competitive districts. Second, every impeachment debate gives Democrats floor time to formally accuse the president of specific documented conduct on the congressional record. Floor speeches are part of the permanent official record of the House, and the more floor record exists, the more material there is for future proceedings when and if the political math changes. Third, every failed impeachment effort establishes and strengthens the specific legal theories and factual foundations that a future House majority will use if it decides to move forward with a serious impeachment process. The internal Democratic tension here is real and worth understanding. Some Democrats want to focus on tangible policy fights where they think they can move public opinion and electoral outcomes in the near term. Others, like Thanedar and Green, are focused on the longer-term record-building strategy. Both approaches have merit. The policy fights are important, but so is the constitutional accountability record. The result is that the impeachment push proceeds, but with more internal friction than it would if the entire Democratic caucus were united behind it as the primary strategic priority. Here is something that almost never gets discussed in coverage of these impeachment filings. The act of filing formal impeachment articles is not just a political statement. It is also a legal and historical act with consequences beyond the immediate political moment. When a member of Congress files articles of impeachment, those articles become part of the permanent record of the Congress. They are preserved by the clerk of the House. They are indexed in the congressional record. They are available to historians, to legal scholars, to future prosecutors, to future congressional investigators, and to any future House majority that wants to pick them up and move forward with them. The Thanedar articles will be available in 25 years, in 50 years. They are the formal congressional statement of what specific members of Congress believe the documented evidence supported as constitutional charges against this president. That permanence matters in a way that is very different from a tweet or a press release or a floor speech that might be forgotten. Impeachment articles are formal constitutional documents. They do not expire. They do not go away when the Congress that filed them adjourns. They are there waiting for whatever comes next. Now let me talk about Al Green specifically, because his persistence across 5 Trump impeachment efforts across both terms tells you something important about how at least some Democrats understand the strategic function of these repeated filings. Green filed his latest resolution calling Trump an abuser of presidential power who will continue to promote violence, engender hate, undermine our democracy, and dissolve our republic if left in office. Green understands that the impeachment record he is building is not primarily about achieving removal in any specific Congress. It is about establishing a formal congressional record of Trump's conduct that will be available to any future accountability process. Every Green filing adds to the permanent record. Every floor debate adds to the permanent record. And every Republican vote to kill the effort adds to the permanent record that Democrats will use to argue that Republicans chose to protect Trump over constitutional accountability. Let me also address the 25th Amendment dimension running alongside the impeachment push. Growing 25th Amendment chatter in the context of Trump's Greenland statements and Iran war conduct is feeding into the same larger accountability conversation. Both are saying the same thing from different constitutional angles. The 25th Amendment route says the president is unfit. The impeachment route says the president has committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Those two arguments can both be true simultaneously. When members of Congress are simultaneously pushing 25th Amendment calls and impeachment articles, they are building a comprehensive accountability case that covers both the fitness dimension and the conduct dimension. Whether it is the 25th Amendment through cabinet action, impeachment through a future House majority, criminal prosecution after the presidency ends, or some combination of all of those, the documented record being built right now through the impeachment filings, the court rulings, the congressional testimony, and the formal removal demands is the foundation. And that foundation is more solid today than it has been at any previous point in Trump's political career. Let me give you 3 clear points to bring this all the way home. The Thanedar 7-count impeachment filing is the most comprehensive formal constitutional indictment of a sitting president ever entered into the House record this early in a presidential term. The specific charges are grounded in documented conduct that courts, investigators, and oversight bodies have been validating. Obstruction of justice backed by the Boasberg and Murphy court findings. Usurpation of spending power backed by documented impoundment and redirection of congressional appropriations. Abuse of trade powers validated by the subsequent Supreme Court ruling. First Amendment violations backed by documented retaliation against critics. Creation of unlawful offices backed by the Brand ruling on unconstitutionally appointed prosecutors. Bribery and corruption backed by ethics disclosures showing financial conflicts in the deregulated banking sector. Tyrannical overreach as the pattern connecting all of it. Every one of those charges has a documented factual foundation that is now part of the public record. The articles were filed before many of those foundations were fully developed. They are stronger now than when they were filed. The procedural picture of repeatedly filing and repeatedly failing to pass these articles is exactly the strategy Democrats should be pursuing given the current political math. You cannot pass impeachment articles in a Republican House. Democrats know that. But you can build the record. You can force the votes. You can make Republicans choose again and again between protecting Trump and upholding constitutional accountability. You can establish and strengthen the specific legal theories that a future majority would use. You can create a foundation of formal congressional documentation that makes a future impeachment process faster, more legally solid, and more politically powerful than it would be if Democrats had to start from scratch. Every failed filing today is infrastructure for the successful effort that becomes possible if the midterms produce a Democratic House majority. The addition of the Greenland texts and the Iran war to the impeachment framework gives Democrats two of the most powerful and most publicly accessible factual foundations the accountability case has yet produced. The Greenland texts are accessible. People can read them. The Nobel Peace Prize comment speaks for itself. The Iran war casualties are concrete. Dead Americans, hundreds wounded, no congressional authorization, real people, real consequences, real constitutional violation. When Democrats add those specific facts to impeachment articles that already cover obstruction, financial corruption, First Amendment violations, and tyrannical overreach, the cumulative case becomes the most comprehensive formal constitutional accountability argument against a sitting president since the Nixon articles. The math for removal may not be there today, but the case is being built, and it is being built in the most official venue available, the United States Congress, in the permanent record, available for any future process, any future majority, any future moment when the political math changes. Here's the bottom line. Representative Shridar Thanedar filed 7 sweeping articles of impeachment charging Trump with obstruction, abuse of power, usurpation of Congress's spending authority, trade power abuse, First Amendment violations, creation of unlawful offices, bribery, and tyrannical overreach. Representative Al Green filed his 5th Trump impeachment resolution, vowing the movement continues. A senator has explicitly called for new impeachment articles tied to the Greenland texts and the Iran war. Republicans have killed every effort through procedural votes, but each filing adds to the permanent congressional record. Each vote forces Republicans to choose between Trump and constitutional accountability on the recorded tape. And the cumulative weight of that record, combined with the documented conduct we have been covering, is building toward the most consequential accountability confrontation in American politics since Watergate. We are going to keep following every development right here with the full picture and no corporate spin. Smash that like button right now if this video gave you the full picture on the impeachment papers rushing into Congress. Drop a comment below. Do you think the Thanedar and Green articles become the foundation for a real impeachment process if Democrats flip the House, or does Trump run out the clock? Regardless of what happens in the midterms, I genuinely want to know what this community thinks. Subscribe if you are not already, because the next video is going to connect the full impeachment picture to the midterm landscape in a way that shows you exactly what the path from here to November looks like. You do not want to miss it. I will see you in the next one.